The cases that won't stay quiet. Crime stories that still spark the fiercest debates and polarise the world. Welcome to Controversial Crimes. I'm your host, Simone Vella. Join the discussion, share your thoughts in the search for the truth. Our journey begins now. In Manitowoc County, the truth is fractured. To half the world, Stephen Avery is a victim of the most corrupt frame-up in American history. To the other half, he is a manipulative monster hiding in plain sight. Two documentaries, two competing narratives, but only one dead woman. Welcome to Controversial Crimes. Today we aren't just looking at the evidence. We are looking at what was left out. We are analysing the collision of the Netflix phenomenon against the Daily Wire's rebuttal to answer the question, was the evidence planted, or was it simply too overwhelming to ignore? Before we enter the legal maze, we must honour the person who lost everything. Teresa Halbach was born on March 22, 1980. She was 25 years old. Teresa was raised on her family's dairy farm in a small Wisconsin town in Calumet County. She was the second eldest of 5 siblings and deeply involved in their lives, including coaching her younger sister's volleyball team at the local church school. Teresa was a brilliant scholar, graduating summa cum laude from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. She was a rising star, a professional photographer working to launch her own budding business. Teresa was an avid traveller, taking trips that spanned the globe, from Mexico and New Zealand to scuba diving off Australia's Great Barrier Reef. She also enjoyed karaoke and spending time with many friends. According to her friends and co-workers, despite the demands of her career, Teresa expressed a strong desire to be a mother and expand her own family someday. Friends and teachers described her as having genuine happiness and an outgoing personality. She was often the life of the party at social gatherings. Her family has called the global obsession with freeing her killers a cruel re-victimization. On Halloween 2005, she took a routine job photographing a minivan at the Avery Auto Salvage. She never came home. To understand the defence's frame-up theory, you have to look at the timeline. In 1985, Avery was wrongfully convicted of sexual assault. He served 18 years before DNA cleared him. Upon release, he filed a massive $36 million lawsuit against Manitowoc County. This created a catastrophic conflict of interest. The very officers being sued, specifically Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, were supposedly recused from the Halbach investigation. Yet those same officers were allowed on the property, and they were the ones who found the most damning evidence. The trial was a war over 6 specific items. Let's break down the collision between the prosecutor's claims and the defence's planting theory. 1. The RAV4. Prosecution. Found hidden under branches on Avery's lot. He was the last to see her. Defense. Found by a civilian relative of Halbach after police had access. They argue the killer planted the car to frame Avery. 2. The blood. Prosecution. Avery's blood was found in 6 spots inside Teresa's car. Defense. Police had an old vial of Avery's blood from 1985. The seal was broken. They argued it was siphoned and planted. 3. The key. Prosecution. Teresa's valet key was found in Avery's bedroom with his DNA on it. Defense. It was found by the same Manitowoc deputies being sued. only after 7 previous searchers missed it. 4. The bones. Prosecution. Charred fragments of Teresa's bones were found in the burn pit right beside Avery's trailer. Defence. The bones were moved there from a quarry to frame him. 5. The bullet. Prosecution. A bullet with Teresa's DNA was found in the garage, fired from Avery's gun. Defence. No bone or tissue was on it. They argued the DNA was contaminated or planted by police. 6. The confession. Prosecution. The final nail. Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey, confessed to helping his uncle sexually assault and murder Teresa, corroborating the physical timeline. Defence. They argued the confession was coerced, factually impossible, and that Brendan was simply guessing to please the officers. While the first 5 items were physical, the 6th item, Brendan's words, became the most controversial aspect of the entire case, because without Brendan, the state had a murder, but with him, they had a narrative. Just 4 months after Avery's arrest, his 16-year-old nephew, Brendan Dassey, was arrested and charged as an accessory. The charges were based on controversial videotaped statements detailing the murder. Dassey, a juvenile with documented intellectual limitations, was subjected to 4 grueling interrogations over a 48-hour period. Crucially, without a parent or counsel present, a vulnerable young man left alone to face trained investigators. His initial court-appointed counsel, Len Kaczynski, drew heavy criticism. Kaczynski, who gave numerous media interviews discussing the case, admitted he sought a plea deal for his client and referred to Dassey's confession as seemingly truthful and the interrogation techniques as pretty standard. Most controversially, Kaczynski directed his own investigator, Michael O'Kelly, to interview Dassey. O'Kelly, who had little relationship with Kaczynski, was sent to administer a polygraph test to the vulnerable young man. Dassey had initially asserted his innocence and requested the polygraph to prove it. However, O'Kelly claimed the administered test showed a 98% rate of deception, a result O'Kelly conveyed to Dassey, which paved the way for more detailed confessions. Later, testimony conflicted on the polygraph results. Kaczynski claimed they were inconclusive, while an expert later stated that his analysis of the charts indicated Dassey passed the test. Regardless, O'Kelly's interview was seen as an attempt to elicit a guilty confession, which Dassey subsequently gave in detail to the police, saying he and Avery sexually assaulted and killed Halbach and burned her body. He later recanted, claiming the confession was coerced and largely suggested to him by the interrogators. The case against Stephen Avery was profoundly strengthened by the charges against his 16-year-old nephew, Brendan Dassey. Dassey had a low average to borderline IQ, rendering him susceptible to suggestion. He was interrogated 4 times by investigators. The most crucial session occurred on March 1st, 2006. Investigators employed techniques consistent with the Reid technique, including theme development, minimisation, and presenting an alternate question. The transcript reveals officers introducing details not known to the public or Dassey, such as, "Did you raise the hood of the vehicle?" or asking, "What about her head?" What did he, Stephen, do to her head? Before Dassey finally agreed to a version of events where he participated in the sexual assault, murder, and the disposal of Halbach's body. The prosecution leaned heavily on the details provided in this confession, even though Dassey later recanted, testifying that the entire story was made up. The prosecution, in an unusual move, held a press conference reading verbatim from Dassey's confession, greatly influencing public opinion. Dassey's subsequent trial began in April 2007. The jury was shown the videotaped confession, which the prosecution heavily relied upon, though Dassey testified in his own defence, saying he lied in the confession but didn't know why. The jury convicted him of being party to the first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and second-degree sexual assault. He was sentenced to mandatory life in prison with the earliest possibility of parole set for November 1st, 2048. From the moment of his conviction, the focus of his legal team shifted entirely to post-conviction relief. Their primary argument? That Brendan's confession was not voluntary, but rather coerced, making it inadmissible in court. In 2010, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals upheld Dassey's conviction. The Wisconsin Supreme Court later declined to hear his case, seemingly closing the doors at the state level. But his legal team, led by attorneys Laura Neidreiter and Stephen Drisden from Northwestern University's Centre on Wrongful Convictions of Youth, pressed onward, taking their arguments to the federal courts. Then, in August 2016, came a pivotal moment. A federal magistrate judge, William Duffin, ruled that Dassey's confession was involuntary, citing constitutional violations. Judge Duffin ordered Brendan's release within 90 days, unless the state appealed. This was a monumental victory, a recognition by the federal court that something had gone terribly wrong. The state of Wisconsin, through its Attorney General, swiftly appealed this decision. A 3-judge panel of the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals initially upheld Judge Duffin's ruling in June 2017, again signalling potential freedom for Dassey. However, the full 7th Circuit and en blanc panel of judges decided to hear the case again. In a divided 4-3 decision in December 2017, they reversed the panel's ruling, concluding that Dassey's confession was voluntary. This reversal was a devastating blow. With state and federal appeals now exhausted, Dassey's legal team had one final avenue: the United States Supreme Court. In 2018, they filed a petition for certiorari, asking the nation's highest court to review the case. In June 2018, the Supreme Court declined to hear Brendan Dassey's case, effectively exhausting his direct appeals. For many, this decision felt like the final legal word, despite the persistent questions surrounding his interrogation. Yet, the fight for Brendan Dassey's freedom continues through other avenues. His legal team has since explored possibilities like clemency, filing new motions, and supporting new legislation aimed at protecting vulnerable individuals during interrogations. They, along with advocates worldwide, remain committed to his release. Brendan Dassey remains incarcerated. His post-conviction journey highlights the immense challenges of overturning a conviction, even when deep-seated questions about the process persist. The case of Brendan Dassey continues to fuel debates about juvenile interrogation, false confessions, and the very nature of justice. The legal saga didn't just become public, it exploded into a global phenomenon with the 2015 release of the Netflix documentary Making a Murderer. The 10-part series, filmed over a decade, strongly advocated for the innocence of Avery and Dassey, casting profound doubt in the legal process. The numbers were unprecedented for a documentary. 35 days after its release, it had been watched by nearly 19.3 million people across the globe. High-profile celebrities and public figures publicly endorsed the documentary's narrative, amplifying its reach and influence across mainstream media. Its power was derived from its ability to bypass traditional media, directly engage millions of viewers, and ignite a massive international debate about the American criminal justice system. We watched Making a Murderer, and we were convinced Stephen Avery was an innocent man and the system was broken. The series immediately spawned a vast global online community of armchair detectives on platforms like Reddit and Twitter who meticulously analysed court documents, transcripts, and evidence. This level of participatory viewership was unprecedented, keeping the case in the public eye for decades. Netflix released a second season of Making a Murderer globally on October 19th, 2018. Season 2 essentially documented the post-conviction fight, the exhaustive, often frustrating legal battle overturned Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey's convictions. The story was driven by two key legal teams, fighting on two separate fronts. For Stephen Avery, we were introduced to his new powerhouse appellate attorney, Kathleen Zellner. Her approach was not just to prove doubt, but to present new, alternative theories of the crime and identify an alternate suspect. For Brendan Dassey, the focus was his ongoing federal appeals, handled by attorneys Laura Neidrider and Stephen Dreslin, whose singular goal was to prove his confession was coerced and therefore unconstitutional. Kathleen Zellner didn't aim for a mistrial, she aimed for exoneration. She relied heavily on new forensic testing and scientific analysis to support several key claims. Zellner challenged the discovery of the car key, suggesting it was planted. She presented expert testimony indicating the key's DNA was contaminated and argued that the lack of touch DNA skin cells on the key suggested it had been deliberately placed there. The most explosive claim was about the blood found in Teresa Halbach's RAV4. Zellner's team conducted tests that they argued supported the theory that EDTA was found in the blood, or alternatively, the blood found belonged to Avery but was either transferred from the sink in Avery's trailer bathroom from a cut on his finger prior to the murder, suggesting it was planted by investigators. She challenged the bullet fragment found in the garage, questioning its trajectory and arguing that the DNA on it was degraded or compromised, making its connection to Halbach unreliable. Perhaps most significantly, Zellner laid out detailed alternate theories implicating other people who were present on the property or who had known connections to Teresa Halbach. This involved complex timelines and cellular data analysis designed to show that someone else had a better opportunity and motive. In the end, Making a Murderer Part 2 showed two very different fights, one based on forensic science and who else did it, and one based on psychology and whether the conviction was even constitutional to begin with. The Netflix narrative was powerful, but public outcry over what critics called selective editing and misleading information prompted a direct, aggressive counter-response. In September 2023, the Daily Wire Plus released a 10-part docuseries, Convicting a Murderer, narrated by Candace Owens, combining archival footage, interviews, court testimony, and investigative analysis to challenge the narrative of Avery as a framed victim. Convicting a Murderer, conceived as a direct rebuttal to argue that Stephen Avery is, in fact, guilty. While there are no official viewership figures for Convicting a Murderer, its release on a different platform means it could never match the sheer, explosive global reach that Making a Murderer achieved through Netflix. Crucially, while aiming to reinforce the verdict, Convicting a Murderer does express empathy with Brendan Dassey, acknowledging his age and intellectual limitations. The series argues that Avery's guilt was supported by evidence and that the police had properly obtained Dassey's confession. While Making a Murderer presented a narrative of corruption and potential framing, the newer series aimed to reinforce the verdict and challenge the global skepticism surrounding the convictions. Convicting a Murderer claimed that Making a Murderer omitted and downplayed key evidence presented by the prosecution. This counter-documentary sought to reframe the narrative, arguing that Avery's guilt was supported by the evidence and that the police had properly obtained Dassey's confession. Although the portrait painted of Brendan differs significantly from that of Avery due to the impact of his age, intellectual limitations, family dynamics, and ineffective counsel. The emergence of two such powerful, competing documentaries demonstrates the deep division in the public's understanding of this case. The main reasons and pieces of evidence the documentary uses to suggest Stephen Avery's guilt include: 1. Undisputed physical evidence linking Avery to the victim. The documentary emphasises the undeniable reality of the forensic evidence that directly connects Avery to the crime and the victim. Stephen Avery had exclusive control over the scene, citing the discovery of Teresa Halbach's RAV4 concealed on the salvage yard property, the last known location of the victim. This vehicle placed Halbach directly at the Avery compound. Further tightening the noose was the discovery of Halbach's car key, found locked inside Avery's bedroom, which served as crucial evidence proving his control over the victim's vehicle. Crucially, only Avery's DNA was found on the key. Charred bone and teeth fragments, later confirmed to be the remains of Teresa Halbach, were discovered in the burn pit located just steps from Stephen Avery's back door. The prosecution argued this was the main site where he attempted to dispose of the body. Her camera, cell phone components, and a rivet from the jeans that Teresa was wearing on that day were also found in a nearby burn barrel. Numerous witnesses corroborated the prosecution's timeline, confirming they saw a large, intense fire burning behind Stephen Avery's trailer on the night of Teresa's disappearance. It was at this exact site that investigators later recovered the key evidence: Teresa's charred bone fragments and personal items, confirming that the disposal took place immediately next to Stephen Avery's residence. Critically, the docuseries provided evidence regarding the tracking efforts of the Avery salvage yard. Featured in Convicting a Murderer, bloodhound dog trainer Sarah Fast claimed her bloodhound's path started near Barb's car, tracked past Stephen's trailer and his garage, and then indicated the burn pit, burn barrels, and the nearby berm. Flask noted that the search was even obstructed by Avery's dog chained around the burn pit. She testified that when Teresa's body was burned in the pit, her ashes were blown over the higher burn nearby and into a pond. This directly contrasts with Making a Murderer, which suggested the dog's actions proved the primary burn site was elsewhere, likely the nearby quarry, before the remains were moved to Avery's residence. Stephen Avery's blood was found in multiple locations inside Halbach's vehicle, including near the ignition, the interior panel, and near the rear cargo area. The prosecution, and by extension Convicting a Murderer, maintains that this blood came from a cut on Avery's finger, which he sustained while moving the body or cleaning the vehicle, not from a planted evidence vial, a claim the documentary attempts to dismiss. A .22 caliber deformed bullet fragment was recovered from the floor of Avery's garage, which had Teresa Halbach's DNA on it. This links Halbach to the Avery's property and his firearm, which the state argued was the murder weapon and likely location. The prosecution argued that Avery's DNA found on the hood latch of the RAV4 was sweat DNA, not blood, and was consistent with him opening the hood to disconnect the battery and conceal the vehicle. This detail, which implicates him in hiding the vehicle, was argued as compelling evidence, not reliant on the planted blood theory. When Avery initially contacted Auto Trader, he specifically requested Teresa for the assignment, yet deliberately provided misleading information. He gave his sister's name, B. Yanda, and her phone number for the reservation concerning Barb's red minivan. As a result, Teresa was unsure where she had to go for the assignment and left a message on Barb's answering machine, requesting a callback to provide the address. The documentary highlights that he had called Teresa's phone 3 times on the day she disappeared, 2 of which were blocked calls withholding his phone number. This suggested an attempt to conceal his identity while trying to ensure she came to his property. Halbach had reportedly expressed reservations about returning to the Avery property following a previous unsettling interaction where Avery allegedly greeted her while wrapped only in a towel. The documentary brings up the fact that Stephen Avery purchased a set of handcuffs shortly before the murder, which aligns with some of the more graphic claims of what happened to Halbach. 2. Evidence suggesting Avery's predatory behaviour and obsession. Convicting a Murderer focuses on behavioural evidence and testimony that making a murderer allegedly minimised or omitted in relation to Stephen's character. These extensive records indicate a long, disturbing and ongoing pattern of concerning behaviour. The docuseries provided a shocking presentation of Stephen Avery's long-term history of violent and antisocial behaviour, beginning in his teens. Evidence showed a litany of criminal complaints filed with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department and surrounding counties. These allegations, which included thefts, violent assaults, domestic violence, coercive control, and SA involving women and minors, painted a comprehensive and troubling portrait that directly challenges the Netflix series narrative of him as a passive victim of circumstance. In March 1981, at age 18, Avery was convicted of burglarizing and vandalizing the same bar 3 times. He served 10 months of a 2-year sentence in Manitowoc County Jail and was released on probation and ordered to pay restitution. Alarmingly, in late 1982, Stephen Avery was involved in an act of staggering cruelty. At his suggestion, he and another man planned to kill his cat. Avery doused the cat in gasoline and oil before throwing it onto a bonfire. When the animal escaped, he chased it, doused it again, threw it back into the fire, and watched it burn to death. Avery was subsequently convicted of animal cruelty and jailed until August 1983, a conviction that predates his major legal troubles. In 1985, Avery was convicted of a separate violent felony, attempted abduction. He used a loaded shotgun to force a woman who was travelling with her baby off the road and ordered her into his car. He was sentenced to 6 years for this crime. Most critically, this means that of his 18-year incarceration, 6 years were served for a legitimate violent conviction, entirely separate from the later wrongful sexual assault case. Further documenting Avery's predatory behaviour, the docuseries presented significant direct evidence, including police statements, family interviews, and prison phone calls regarding allegations of sexual abuse. Specifically, in 2005, Stephen Avery's niece, Marie Avery, submitted a police statement alleging sexual assault when she was a minor. These sources showed a clear and disturbing pattern of sexually inappropriate behaviour involving his nieces and nephews, a pattern tragically reinforced by Brendan Dassey's own statements, indicating he was also a victim. 3. Testimony omitted or edited by making a murderer. A key strategy of convicting a murderer is to fill in narrative gaps created by selective editing of the Netflix series, particularly through the inclusion of testimony from those who believe Avery is guilty. The docuseries systematically identifies omissions and edits in Making a Murderer by rearranging testimony, and selective evidence presentation are illustrated. There are instances where key evidence supporting Avery's guilt was left out, leading to a skewed narrative favouring Avery's innocence. But every edit tells a story, and every cut hides a secret. Convicting a Murderer presented the evidence that was left on the cutting room floor. It is an undeniable fact that documentary editing shapes perception. Critics accuse Making a Murderer of outright manipulation, specifically by rearranging, omitting, or combining court testimonies given by Manitowoc County deputies and key witnesses. This technique created a visual and auditory narrative that emphasised contradiction and deliberately fostered viewer suspicion about the investigators and witnesses, motives, and conduct. The docuseries highlighted a key technicality. The Manitowoc County Sheriff's deputies were not personally liable for damages in the $36 million civil lawsuit. The settlement would have been paid entirely by the county and its insurers. This is an important distinction, as it dilutes the defence's claim of a direct, personal motive for framing Avery. The docuseries emphasises the sheer impossibility of a framer, given the vast and multi-agency manpower involved in the investigation. The list of collaborators was extensive. The Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, Calumet County, multiple Wisconsin law enforcement partners, local and state forensics experts, and the FBI. The documentary includes the testimony of Brendan Dassey's brother, Bobby Dassey, who testified at the trial that he saw Teresa Halbach's vehicle on the Avery property near Stephen Avery's trailer after she was supposed to have left. This helps corroborate the prosecution's claims that the RAV4 was never moved off the property. It was emphasised in Convicting a Murderer that Stephen Avery's claims were inconsistent during the investigation. In numerous interviews with the media and law enforcement, Avery's account of key moments on the day Teresa disappeared, including the precise time and nature of his last interaction with her, shifted dramatically, providing the state with a clear argument that he was concealing the truth. The program features interviews with Stephen Avery's former girlfriend, Jody Chowalski, who contradicts the sympathetic portrayal of Avery in the Netflix series. She speaks about instances of domestic violence and expresses her belief that Avery is guilty, giving context to his potential character and behaviour. Lynn Hartman was engaged to Stephen Avery in 2016 for a brief period. Their relationship, which began through letters and phone calls while Avery was in prison, ended quickly amid accusations that Hartman was seeking money and publicity. Direct evidence was presented in the docuseries suggesting his behaviour was deeply concerning, including a letter that contained his specific expectations for his wife. Because of Avery's actions and behaviour, Lynn Hartman now publicly claims that she believes Avery is guilty of Teresa's murder. Ultimately, Convicting a Murderer positions Stephen Avery's case not as a failure of justice for the wrongfully convicted, but as a case where the local jury got the verdict right and the subsequent appeals were simply a result of a highly politicised media frenzy. 4. Reaffirming Brendan Dassey's confession and the doubts. The global audience felt profound sympathy and intense rage regarding Brendan Dassey's predicament. In Convicting a Murderer, the portrait painted of Brendan Dassey's character differs sharply from Stephen Avery's, and the docuseries does not ignore the complexity of his vulnerabilities. Evidence presented, including interviews with legal experts, family members, and journalists, made clear that his developmental impairments and family dynamic left him highly vulnerable in the circumstances he found himself in. Across the board, profound sympathy is expressed for his alleged involvement. Most interviewed make one point abundantly clear. They believe Dassey would not have committed a crime of this nature were it not for the influence of Stephen Avery. However, while acknowledging the legal battle over coercion, Convicting a Murderer emphasises that the jury in his separate trial found his confession credible. The series suggests Dassey revealed details that were true, and that his later recantation was motivated solely by external pressure from Stephen Avery and his family. The confession, regardless of its origin, provided a narrative that strongly implicated Stephen Avery. The key difference between the two documentaries is one of legal authority, where Making a Murderer focused on constitutional violations and the coercion argument. Convicting a Murderer prioritised the jury's decision. The jury heard the arguments, watched the tapes, and ultimately believed the confession was genuine enough to reach a guilty verdict. This series uses that conviction as a foundational fact. To challenge the idea that Dassey was merely parroting facts, Convicting a Murderer included longer, less edited segments of the interrogation tapes. The series underscores the prosecution's belief that Brendan Dassey's statements included specific, non-public details about the crime, knowledge that only someone involved could possibly possess. This evidence is used to argue that the confession wasn't entirely fed to him, but was a voluntary release of information. The series also emphasises that Dassey was given multiple opportunities during the interrogation to clarify or stop speaking, which the state argued proves his statements were not made under duress. Convicting a Murderer gives significant airtime to the prosecution's theory that Brendan's eventual recantation was driven by family interests, specifically his mother and his post-conviction legal team. Although audio recordings of Stephen Avery's jailhouse calls exhibited his influence over his family, Brendan, and the decisions being made, the series suggests that Brendan's own family dynamic and the subsequent media frenzy surrounding Stephen Avery heavily influenced his decision to deny his earlier statements, rather than the recantation being an honest realisation of innocence. The docuseries highlighted that Dassey was offered plea deals contingent on testifying against Stephen Avery, offers that could have reduced his sentence to as little as 15 years. His defence team sought to ensure Brendan understood these critical legal options, especially after the initial appeal to suppress his confession was overturned. Critically, Dassey declined these plea offers. This theory, supported by the evidence including intercepted family phone calls, suggests this decision was heavily influenced by the Avery family, who prioritised Stephen's innocence narrative over Brendan's freedom. This presented a clear picture. The Avery family appeared more concerned with protecting Stephen than protecting Brendan. The documentary gives a platform to Brendan's original court-appointed attorney, Len Kaczynski, by allowing him to explain his strategy and decisions, including the investigators' controversial meeting with Dassey alone. The series attempts to refute the Making a Murderer narrative that his defence intentionally was ineffective or negligent. The goal is to show that a professional defence was mounted, even if it was highly criticised. The foundational premise of Convicting a Murderer is this. It argues that if the audience considers all the evidence presented at the original trial, particularly the direct forensic links and the omitted behavioural context, they must conclude that Stephen Avery is guilty. The series asserts that the sensational claims of planting evidence simply do not overcome the substantial physical proof. The competition between these high-profile media products highlight a sobering truth. In the age of digital content, public perception is often shaped not by the complete court record, but by the selective narrative offered by a filmmaker. The conviction of Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey presents a fundamental choice. Do you believe in a narrative of corruption, or do you accept the verdict supported by the trial's evidence? Teresa Halbach's loss remains the single irrefutable tragedy. Her family's private trauma was made public entertainment, a heartbreak that should always anchor this debate. We want to hear from you. Is this a tragedy of corruption or a tragedy of guilt? If you want to keep exploring the truth behind true crime cases, be sure to hit like and subscribe to Controversial Crimes.